You were created to make a sound, not just to echo the noise. Welcome to the Amplified Era podcast. I am your host, Nadia Morris. I am here to help you push past the fear, identify the silence, and birth the purpose you've been carrying. We are leaving the safety of the shadows and stepping into the spotlight of your destiny. This is season 1, The Great Unmuzzling. So if you are ready to take the mute button of your life, let's get to work. Welcome to the Amplified Era podcast. We are on episode number 3, and today we are going to talk about welcome to the Amplified Era. So if you joined on the previous 2 episodes, we would have started by dealing with the silence, and now we moved into diagnosing the muzzle last week. And so today we're going to talk about what it means to be in the amplified era. So I want to talk about the muffled era versus the amplified era. And the muffled era would have been you being in survival mode. And what does survival mode look like? It looks like you living in scarcity. There's not enough resources, there's not enough time, there's not enough qualification. I'm going to always talk about that. Not enough qualification. And you are more or less waiting on permission, waiting for permission. We are waiting for someone to invite you to a meeting. You're waiting on someone to say, okay, you can speak now. And in this era, you are basically just happy to be here in the room. But I wanted to give you an analogy. Like, think about driving in a car. Those old cars, the old radio, the analog radio, where you had to turn the dial to find the station. I'm not talking about the electronic or the automatic scanner. You had to dial the dial to find your station to hear the music. And so you had to strain, because sometimes that meant static in between the radio stations. So you would have to strain to understand what you're listening to. And that is exactly what muffled purpose feels like. You are in the room, but your signal is very weak. People can hear you, but they're straining to understand what really is your value. So the static that you may have encountered in life is the one of fear, one of doubt, other people's opinion. So basically, in the muffled era, you're broadcasting, but you're just not connecting. So what are we really working towards in the amplified era? It is an era where you are living in your God-given authority. And what does that mean? What does that look like? It means that you're no longer waiting on permission. You're now creating the opportunities. Every word that you speak, it now lands. There's no distortion. There's no screaming that is necessary, because the frequency that you're on now is very clear. So what this era is really about is you now stepping into that high definition sound, where every note is crisp, every word lands. You don't demand respect, but more or less your presence in a room commands that respect. And the difference between this era and the muffled era is just volume or speaking louder. It is now that you have clarity. And so that is the core truth of this podcast, and where we're doing this in the amplified era. We don't shrink to fit into rooms. We don't do that. We expand until the room adjusts to us. And so we're really moving from survival to significance. So holla at me. So I wanted to pause for a second. We just talked about static and the noise that keeps you muffled. And you know that you have purpose, but you can't tune in to that purpose yet. You're busy, but you're not effective. And it's not that you lack effort, it's that you really lack clarity. So if you're tired of the guessing game, I have something for you coming up in April, on April 18th. It's the Clarity Masterclass that will be held face to face. It's not our usual online webinar. Is going to be a face-to-face engagement. It's more of a strategic deep dive into, to help you wipe away the fog from your vision. So we'll really get down busy working for a whole day on the blueprint that you need to actually build what you need, what you're called to build right now in this season. So if you want to stop trying to drive in the dark and turn your headlights on, then you can grab the instant access to the Clarity Masterclass in the link in the notes below, or visit nadiathepurposemidwife.com. Let me tell you, clarity is expensive, but confusion costs you more. So if you want to get clear, you can join the Clarity Masterclass on April 18th. So there are more details there. So who am I? Because we talk about amplified era, but what do you need to do to walk into the amplified era? And that is where my role comes in as Nadia the Purpose Midwife. So why this tied to the Purpose Midwife? It found me. I didn't find it. It's a knack, I think. It's a gift that I have to be able to take persons or give them that vision that they have for themselves to move from point A to point B. And so a doctor we know treats sickness, but a midwife assists in bringing forth life. And so what it's not a matter that you're sick, but it's more that you're pregnant with purpose, and you are carrying either a vision, a business, ministry, a dream that is ready to come into the world. And so my job is not to heal, my job is to help deliver what is already inside of you. So this podcast is like a delivery room, and as your midwife, there are 3 specific jobs I have during this season in your life, for this season of the amplified era. And number 1 is I tell you when to push. Labor can be very painful, and by nature, when something hurts, you're naturally inclined to stop. And that is how purpose is. Sometimes you're gonna be taken out of your comfort zone and into the promise. And in between that, there must be something that you need to do, that you need to push and to push through. But even in the delivery room, when the baby is crowning, you want to quit because the contract fell through, the whatever you were planning didn't go ahead as planned. And I am that voice in your ear telling you that you mustn't stop, but the pressure is the proof of the promise, and that you need to continue pushing. The second job that I have is to tell you when to breathe, because anybody who knows about labor and delivery, you cannot push. You have to push and pause, right? And if you do that, you'll only distress yourself, you'll distress the baby, you'll burn out. And so in this era that we're all living in, we're not glorifying exhaustion, of course not. And a lot of persons are realizing now that rest is a strategy that God is giving us in this season, and it's not a sin if you need to rest. And sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do for yourself is to take a nap. So I'm just here to remind you to inhale, rest, and gather your strength for the next contraction. And the third job that I have is to help to catch what comes out, because the midwife is there to catch the baby, right? And so that is the part that most people miss when they are birthing. And sometimes we birth the thing, the idea, and it's a small win, but we drop it because we're too busy looking for something bigger than what is happening. And so my job is to help you to catch the small wins, to clean them off and show you that this is what you created, and this is what value looks like, what you just did. All right. So I can't birth the baby for you, may I add. You would have to do that work. And I can hold your hand while you push. And the best way you can do that also is through community. So you are not created to bloom in isolation. And we all know the word for the year for 2026 is time to bloom. Yeah, it's time to bloom. And so you need a greenhouse, you need a circle that is speaking the language of your future, not your past. So I am officially opening cohort 2 of the Bloom Mentorship Program. Cohort 1 is now in train, and let me tell you, it is mind blowing. You will be draped because we're digging into the soil to take out the bad seeds, to be able to clear the way for you to plant. And so the persons who are part of this program, they understand it's a very intimate, high level mentorship, and you are walk through the different aspects of what you need to walk through in order to not just talk about the vision, but to build the infrastructure to hold whatever you're launching, whether it's your business, a ministry, or a career, or that pivot. And so I believe cohort 2 is going to be exponential. Spaces are limited because it needs to be a very hand holding type of process. And so I can't have too many people working with at one time. Even though it's a group mentorship, I still have to zone in and give you individual attention. If you are ready to be mentored, that link is also in the show notes. So I want to talk about now the manifesto of the Amplified era. And what does that look like? Really, is there are 3 pillars that we are working with. And the first pillar is the awakening. And this corresponds with the first phase of what we're doing now. The episodes are broken into these 3 pillars. So episodes 1 to 4 is going to deal with the awakening. And it's basically you now refusing to sleepwalk through your own potential, right? You've been polite about your oppression, you've been quiet about your gifts. So what this is seeking to do is start to awaken you, to shake you from your sleep, to let you understand that you need to be awakened. You need to address what you need to address. You can't ignore the muzzle. You have to name the muzzle that you're dealing with. You can't pretend that fear is not there. You have to stare fear in the face and address it. And so to be awakened means that you're done asking for permission to exist, and you're done being the best kept secret there is, because the best kept secret is only good for you alone. There's something more that you need to be doing, and so that is where we will take you out of the best kept secret to be known. All right. So pillar 2 of our manifesto is the strategy. And I am a project management professional, certified change practitioner, ProSci certified. And so I'm going to walk you through the skills that I have garnered as a project manager, and to help you to build a plan. It is nice to have passion, but passion without a plan is just chaos, just out here having passion, and then what else? And the second law that we are operating by is that we don't just hustle blindly, we are building. So you'll hear me talk about in phase 2, which is the strategy stage, that you have to project manage your purpose. And in the amplified era, we don't do manifestation. We align with God's vision for your life, and we implement a plan that is measurable around what God has said. And I believe I've been realizing that persons will hear a word from God and then don't ask God, so when is this for? What do I need? Where do I need to be? We don't ask any question, we just take the word and put it down. But we have to now be more strategic about this process. We'll also understand that labor pains are a part of the process as well. And we'll understand that silence can be strategic but not forced. And we have to treat our calling with the same professional rigor that we treat our corporate jobs. So we don't just have a dream, but we're here to help you build a blueprint. And so, pillar 3 that we will dive into as part of our amplified era is the amplification. And this is the entire goal of the podcast. This is phase 3. And this law is very simple. We move from broken to blooming. And amplification is not about arrogance, it's about freedom. It's not about noise, just making up bare noise and just talking for talking's sake, but you would have walked through the understanding why you were muzzled, understanding the strategies to take you from your muffled era to your amplified era. So now what you're walking with is more clarity. And so with through in that phase, we'll be talking about who is in your delivery room. It's about reaching a place where you don't just have potential, but you have power. And when you live by amplification and by this pillar, it means that you stop shrinking, you stop apologizing, and now you sign your own permission slip to really walk out how you need to walk in your purpose. So, this is the roadmap that we're going to be using in this podcast. It's the awakening, which is breaking the silence, and then we move into strategy, which is building the structure, and then amplification, where you are living in full bloom. So I just want to remind you, it's not just a podcast. This is really a progression, and phase 1 is where you find your voice. Phase 2 is where you build the vehicle, and phase 3 is where we drive it. So when you sign the manifesto, the muzzle is off, the diagnosis is very clear. So all that is left to do now is to do the work. Okay? Right. So I have a question here, or an observation really, that I have noticed. And I just I'm trying to introduce this as well as part of the podcast, the observations where you're going to find this a lot when you're in the strategy phase of purpose, where you get discouraged, and you have a plan, you know the plan, you know what you're supposed to do, but the distractions will come. Distractions are going to come, and you're going to feel as though what you're doing does not make sense. And I learned a lesson where you have to be focused on the goal. You have to be focused on what is ahead of you. And I find that when you remind yourself of what you're supposed to be doing and where the end game, when you remind yourself of the end game, then it is much easier for you. Even if you get discouraged, you're gonna have to sit down, pause, and start to interrogate what this distraction is, and why are you feeling this way, why you feel discouraged, where you need to give up on the purpose or the promise. And so yeah, when you feel distracted, you feel discouraged, find something to do, change your focus to focus on something else, and then you'll realize the momentum starts to build again. So you always have to keep that momentum going. If you pause and you stop, because this is why this podcast was not done, because I believed that it just never made any sense, and who would want to listen to what I had to say? And so you have to understand. Now, I'm going to talk about this a lot because there are many things that God will give you to do, assignments that will link directly to your purpose. But you have to know how to manage each assignment accordingly. So, this is it for this episode. And so I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you for stepping into the Amplified Ear with me today. If this episode sparked a fire in you, don't let it burn out. The best way to support this movement is to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a woman who is ready to find her voice. You can connect with me on social media at Nadia the Purpose Midwife to keep the conversation going. And remember, the muzzle is off, the silence is broken, and you have permission to take up space. Until next time, keep blooming.